As entrepreneurs, we all want to make a huge difference. And one of the best ways is to follow those who have made a huge difference. And I've got a remarkable entrepreneur with us today who has a great story of how she really reinvented herself in 2008, 2009, and some lessons learned that are going to be applicable for all entrepreneurs. See, she is an orthodontist, been an orthodontist for over 27 years. She's extremely successful. Matter of fact, her practice, and she has 4 practices, is in the top 1% of all revenue in North America. I mean, when you think about that, that is focus, it's deliberate. And the lessons, I got to tell you, they're going to be amazing. You do not want to miss this remarkable guest. Stay tuned.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
Dr. Donna Galante, I am so excited to have you here. You and I met at Joe Polish's mastermind group, and I'm sitting there kind of wondering whether I really want to learn anything from an orthodontist. I'm going back to those braces days and everything. And I tell you, you took the whole room and you just got everyone focused on what was important. I wanted to invite you and thank you for joining us so we could share your message with, the entrepreneurs who are watching and listening to AES Nation.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to our time this morning together because I think it's an honor, and I love your podcast, and I think I'm really privileged to be part of it this morning, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, Donna, let's go back. One of the things that's so interesting is business, and we kind of think ours is unique. Whether we're an orthodontist, whether we're a manufacturer of widgets, whether we're doing something that professional services. And I think, the lessons you had and have shared are so good. And I want to make sure everybody gets those, but I want to get a little background. Like, how did you become this really super successful entrepreneur and make it through 2008 and transform yourself?
Well, okay. I went to dental school. And then finished dental school and then decided to go back to dental school and become an orthodontist. So I'm a specialist and I just do braces. And now Invisalign has become a big part of our practice. And, quite honestly, I don't think I started out thinking that I was an entrepreneur. Back when I graduated school in 1986, I thought of myself as an orthodontist and I was going to open my practice and hang up my shingle and patients were going to start coming in. And quite honestly, that's, pretty much kind of what happened over the years. Patients would come in and practice kept growing and dentistry in general it's a great profession to be in. People need our services. But, and what was funny is in 2007, we did something which I thought at the time was absolutely amazing. Was we moved one of our locations from this tiny 1,500 square foot office that we were literally exploding out of into a very large commercial building that we purchased in 2007, 4,500 square feet, because we needed the space at the time for our expanding orthodontic practice. And the rest of the story is where it gets really exciting because shortly after we moved in November of 2007, took out a big loan. It's a lot of debt service in purchasing a building of that size, moving a practice. Within about 6 months, and I always tell the story, our phone stopped ringing, and it was really true. I mean, I would be in the office sometimes on a non-patient day, just doing administrative duties, and it would be eerily quiet. And I remember I'd call the office on my cell phone just to make sure the phones were still working. And I used to think, okay, well, maybe my husband didn't pay the phone bill or something, because we literally went, and it's hard to believe, but maybe some of you listening to this had a similar experience. We went from 80 new patients a month to a barely getting in about 15 patients a month, starting in about April of 2008. And
Well, Donna,
it
let
was,
me stop you here just for a second, because I want to bring everybody to that time, because I didn't know this detail of your story. And I think all of us as fellow entrepreneurs who are doing business during that period, I built with two partners an office building, a 44,000 square foot office building in 2006, 2007. And I can just remember we thought we were going to take the whole building. We then took half, and then all the other challenges. But this is a time, I mean, where everything slowed down. And unless you were a bankruptcy attorney, there was a slowdown going on. And many people just didn't, it was easy to just kind of hide. And, talking, but when we have no phone calls, and I mean, I love, your husband, yep, the phone's there, I did pay it, it's working. We're at this, and all of us as entrepreneurs, if you were doing any serious business and you had these moments, these crises, I know our revenue dropped during that period 45%, and that's kind of a little wake-up call along the way. Well, how did you react? How did you deal with it? React to it, I'm not as concerned, but how did you deal with it? That's a big concern we all have.
well, at first, I just thought it was a seasonal thing. I don't spend a lot of time, watching, negative news. I think I'm much more of a positive person. So if I have free time, I'm reading stuff that's positive, motivating, developing certain skills. I'm not sitting there, watching, the depressing news. So quite honestly, I hadn't paid attention to what was going on, outside of my orthodontic practice. And at first I just thought, oh, well, it's just a seasonal kind of thing. It's spring and everybody's getting ready for Mother's Day and graduations and planning summer vacation. But by the time the summer ended, and summer for an orthodontist is the money. June, July, August, I mean, it is like craziness. Like you never take vacation in the summer because you're so busy. We had a devastatingly slow summer, to the point that by the time September rolled around, we were just we were at like half capacity, and I was having to, cut back staff hours. Certain staff were already leaving because their husbands had already lost their job. And I realized I went from kind of thinking this was just normal to kind of almost being depressed about it, and then denial. And then finally, I kind of got my act together and I said, okay, this is real. This is here to stay. Things have changed. And whatever we've been doing for the past, 20 some odd years to that point is not going to work anymore. And we started to roll. I mean, I literally just said, look, we got to do something different. I used to come home at night and joke with my children, who at the time were 10 and 12. And say, the way things are going, kids, I'm going to have to pull you out of school. And Nate, you're going to be in the back sterilizing instruments and creating. You're going to be taking all the phone calls and making patient appointments. And my kids would sit there like, no. But I mean, it was just such a free fall. And we decided we had to do something different. And the hardest part was our patient base is mostly kids and families, right? They're the ones coming in, getting the braces. The moms and dads are bringing their kids. And 75, 80% of our practice were kids, teenagers. And these people now were losing their jobs, losing their homes. And you can bet they're not going to get braces for their children because they can barely pay their mortgages. So we kind of had to look and say, what other market are we missing? What are we missing that is untapped? And we discovered it was a combination of this market of adult patients, and combine that with Invisalign. Because most adults, like yourself, you don't want to wear braces, but you want straight teeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we decided that we were going to focus our attention on getting really good with Invisalign, which is a clear, removable. They're braces, but they're removable. You wear them all the time, but you take them out to eat. They're virtually invisible. And the company has been around since 2000, and we were doing Invisalign, but probably it was about less than 10% of our practice. So 2008, 2009, we just started to target this adult baby boomer population, who we discovered they were affected a little bit by the downturn, but a lot of them were very stable because they owned their homes, they weren't working anymore, they had some money fairly secure in their retirement. And we targeted those retirement communities, really, full on, just direct mail. Anytime we could get into those communities and bring our a talk to the groups. And within about a 12-month period, 12 to 18-month period, we were able to recoup our losses. Most of the other offices in my area were struggling, right? And there were several bankruptcies and dentists. Who's ever heard of a dentist that goes bankrupt? It was really a scary time, but everyone was hunkering down, or they were just in that denial depression stage and they never came out of it.
Well, let me catch up with you, Donna. This is so important because, I mean, one of the things as entrepreneurs, we talk about the ability to pivot. And when I was listening to your story at the Genius Network, it was kind of, it was one of those blindingly obvious things that's so often that we don't have happen, that we don't make the change until we have the heart attack. So one of the things we want to do is, for all our fellow entrepreneurs, look now. Don't wait for the heart attack, because nobody gets out of life unscarred. We're going to have these things, and there's a real opportunity here because once we, it's as you were saying, I'm thinking of I've got family members in their 70s who are getting braces. I've got all these friends in high tech who are in their 50s and 60s that are doing it. And it was kind of like, geez, I thought we were supposed to do that in high school and the whole thing. And by changing that, because now all of a sudden, you had this resilient group in a downturn that still had money that wanted this. They didn't know they wanted it. You had to communicate it. So you had to create a marketing campaign to make them aware. They became aware. And boy, I mean, the results, not only were you able to recover, but you've thrived through this whole thing.
Yeah, and what was really kind of really, I mean, there's been so many benefits. It's one of those things where you're in the darkest depths sometimes of your business, and you're just like waking up in the middle of the night, and you're not knowing exactly what to do. You're in that denial, depression mode. And then when you finally kind of figure it out, like, you need to do something different, right? And, declaring bankruptcy was something that my husband and I we weren't even in that, we didn't even decide, like that was not even in our verbiage. Like we didn't even talk about that, right? And while that probably, looking back on it, would have been a very viable option for us, to be honest with you, but we didn't do it. And because we didn't do it and we hunkered down and we really decided because with Invisalign, and it's an appliance that's very advanced. And I know you're in Silicon Valley, and that's where it originated. I mean, the corporate headquarters is in Santa Clara, and it's a very high-tech, customized appliance. And it really takes a lot of time and energy to learn how to do it well, and a lot of extra education. And that was the thing that so many orthodontists and dentists have been fearful of, because there is a learning curve to it. And you know what, John, we didn't have a choice. I just had to do it. I mean, we just had no choice, and jumped in. And, I can look back now and say, wow, it was the best thing that ever happened to our practice and to my husband. I mean, to our employees even, they will tell you the same thing. And certainly I'm now able to treat, a vast amount of adults that, would have walked around with their crooked teeth, their poor periodontal conditions. And our practice now is about 45% adult versus about 15% 7 years ago.
It's amazing. And, and that's one of the things in the free markets, what happen. I love capitalism, because by delivering all this value, you do well by doing well by others, and you've really done that. And what I want to do is go into some of the lessons learned, and we talked about this. And let me go to the first one. And this is kind of one of those blindingly obvious ones that we're blind to. Is number one, recognize the problem. And it's so easy to go through the phases that you talked about, Donna, where we kind of ignore it, we kid ourselves, where hope is not a strategy. I mean, we've got to have something more than that. And talk about recognizing a problem. How can you do that now, with what you've learned, without getting hit over the head, having the heart attack?
Well, I think that's a great question, actually, because right now I'm seeing kind of some things on the horizon. Actually, there's some really big, massive changes going on in the dental profession in general, and that has to do with how dentists practice, okay? And there's this, what I would call corporatization of dentistry. Private equity has come in and sees, how valuable, productive, financially stable a dental practice can be. And right now, there are a lot of dentists, signing on and selling their practices to these private equity groups that are batching the offices together and, becoming kind of a corporate monstrosity, so to speak. So the whole private practice dentist orthodontist, I think, it's changing, and it's been happening, but I would say it's accelerated in the last 12 months. With that being said, we're kind of looking at it and thinking to ourselves, well, how do we adapt now to this new practice model? And the idea about Invisalign now, maybe it isn't so special. It's become more of a household word. People are very aware of it. Many other doctors have kind of, come in and decided to start doing more Invisalign, which is great because the more people talk about it, the more it becomes a household word. But we're in the process now of looking at, okay, what can we do differently now, or what can we add to our practice to keep us ahead of this changing world? And we already have implemented a few things, and we have a pretty good strategy in place right now to kind of change our practice model once again and be competitive, at least for the next 5 to 7 years again.
This is so critical. I mean, one of the things we all have to do is think about how can we differentiate ourselves, and actually even a higher standard, how do we become distinctive? And this is with the low interest rate environment going on,
Yes.
the ability to consolidate, do roll-ups in every industry. I actually was involved in one in the financial services in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I mean, they're extremely profitable to do. They aren't necessarily big value creation other than for the free principals that are doing it. But it's something that they're going to become more professional, these practices. So that and that's whether you're orthodontist, whether you're professional services, whether you're a widget manufacturer, this is happening. And so we really got to recognize the problem. Then, Donna, what I want to go to, one of the things I like, number two, was make changes right from the beginning of the process. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Some of the things that we're doing is we're now targeting, we're looking at, okay, what else is a big concern for people? And one of the things we learned with Invisalign, especially these adult patients, is that they're very concerned about their health and wellness. And that's a big part of our marketing message to this age group, because a lot of times these adults, I mean, I have patients now in their 70s and even their 80s. And I mean, yes, they may have they have vanity, they want to look good, but you know what they really want? They want maximum health. They know that their mouth is very important as far as their overall health, right? So now we're focusing a lot on addressing issues related to sleep apnea and obstructive sleep apnea, which affects about 80 million people in the United States. And we as orthodontists are perfect for offering a solution through different types of appliances, for example, that'll help people from, snoring, stopping to breathe at night. And it's all part of this approach where we're trying to, get in front of, what is it that people need and where is healthcare going these days? And it certainly is heading into this idea of, for especially for seniors, their new wealth is their
What I
health.
like, Donna, is you're taking advantage of Dan Burris, who's a futurist. I did a podcast with, you can Google or search on our website, AES Nation. And Dan talks about hard trends, and that we as entrepreneurs have to really focus on hard trends. And one of the hard trends we know is that we're all getting older, and certainly the baby boomers are going. And then there's another trend of human longevity that's going on. And this disease of aging affects everyone, including all these research people. So, the desire, I always I love skiing, and skiing and having an 80-year-old guy or gal, is usually mostly guys, but jumping in to the chair with me to go for a run. and because he gets a free pass. I'm looking forward to my free pass at 80. Well, what happens is, you know, this is, as entrepreneurs, what we have to do is really identify where can we do that value in the right place, in the process. Earlier is better. And this is really good. One of the things, though, that I love is on number 3, on your takeaways, lessons learned, is working smarter, not harder. And the temptation when things start falling apart is just, I'm gonna carry it. I'm gonna somehow do it. And Donna, you know, why did you have that as lesson number 3?
Yeah, work smarter. Yeah, because what happens is, and I was guilty of it in the beginning too. I thought, well, the harder I work, you know, the more results I'm going to get, or the bigger results I'm going to get. And the reality was that's not true. It wasn't happening. In fact, the harder I worked, the more exhausted I got, and the more frustrated I got. So when I say work smarter, not harder, you know, it's just focused attention, you know, figuring out, you know, who, and it's kind of like, who is your ideal patient or client, you know, or customer, and really making sure that everything that you do, that your message is very clear, every piece of marketing, everything your staff is talking about or saying to people, how they're scripting things. And for yourself as the owner of the business, yeah, sometimes you feel it's like your responsibility to solve all the problems, you know, all the problems in the world, including your practice, right? And the reality is it's not. I mean, you need to bring in key people to help you sometimes. You need to get maybe a consultant to come in. And sometimes you don't have the money at that moment, you know, or you're feeling like, wow, I can barely pay, you know, the mortgage. How am I going to pay a consultant? But you know, getting key people in to help you, and also just having very focused, just being extremely focused to the point where when we were focusing on this Invisalign mission, that's all we talked about. Patients came in the door, that's all we talked about. You know, if they wanted braces, we educated them on the benefits of Invisalign. It was like laser focus. And because of that, I feel like because we were so targeted, we were able to see results pretty quickly without having to exhaust ourselves and try to find the next, you know, oh, well, if you really, you know, it was kind of like we were so focused on Invisalign that the blinders were on. And because of that, we were able to just really ramp up relatively quickly. I mean, the downfall was pretty rapid, but the up, you know, within, like I said, within 12 months, things significantly turned around. And by 18 months, we were back to where we were in 2007 before the downfall.
No, that's so critical. I mean, you know, in today's world, with all the tools that we have to stay focused, we also have all these attention things, you know, trying to distract us. And, you know, and many of our fellow entrepreneurs have data, and you can see really quickly, you know, what's working, what's not. And I mean, this is something I have to constantly do myself, is, you know, focus on what's working, what is the marketplace telling us that we're delivering a lot of value for, and we're being compensated for it. So that value creation, I mean, the marketplace is so good. And sometimes we kid ourselves that if we keep on running really hard, it's going to make a difference. And if you're doing the wrong thing and the market doesn't appreciate it, running harder is only going to get you really tired. But let's go to number 4, a focus on something that's so important, the customer service, customer experience. How did you deal with this, Donna?
This is my favorite part of the whole thing because, you know, we were, you know, when you lose 30% of your revenue, your marketing budget kind of dwindles rapidly, right? And so we kind of went back to the basics. And I think, you know, and I look back and I say, gosh, you know, I had lost sight of the basics. You know, when you're so busy and you're growing each and every year, sometimes doubling your practice overnight, and it's kind of happening almost with, you know, without a whole lot of effort anymore. And you get kind of lazy and you really forget who is really putting money in your bank account. It's your patient, it's your customer, it's your client. So we went back to the basics, and it was simple things that we did. And I'll tell you, it was just a relentless focus on the little things, the tiny little things, the little cards, handwritten cards. I can't tell you how many we still to this day send out, probably at least a dozen handwritten cards a day that my staff is charged with doing to patients. I mean, think about when you get a handwritten card in the mail. It's the first thing you open, isn't it? Of course it is. Because
It's so rare that I'm
right?
like, who is this? Even when I know it's, marketing, I still open it up.
You still
Yeah,
open it,
yeah.
right? And so it was the little things. It was, like just we would, for example, like I said, we didn't have a whole lot of money, so we were trying to work with what we had. We had an email list of over 5,000 patients. And I know some of you listening to this are going to go, well, okay, so that's a no-brainer. But we had never really used the email list for anything other than to remind patients of their appointments. Well, okay, so now I'm faced with a very low marketing budget and I had 5,000 emails. Well, we started emailing people on a weekly basis, and it wasn't pitching them. It was purely educational. What is Invisalign? What are the benefits of Invisalign? How does Invisalign work? Because back in 2007, a lot of people really hadn't heard of Invisalign. Some other little things we did. I mean, just super. I mean, some of the stuff seems really kind of like a no-brainer. But think about in your own businesses how many times you don't do this. Like, for example, the patients would come to the front desk to check out and reschedule. We forgot to ask them, Mrs. Smith, how was your appointment today? Johnny, how was your appointment today? Was there anything the doctor could have done differently? Mrs. Smith, did you get all your questions answered by Dr. Galante? I mean, those stupid little questions we had stopped doing. And what was happening, patients were leaving the office and upset about something. And, we never found out because we never asked, right? We never asked them. We started baking cookies. In the afternoon, if you came into our office, you would smell fresh chocolate chip cookies. I mean, so simple, but I'm telling you, people started to say, if we didn't have the cookies one day because we were out of the dough, people would say, where are the cookies? And we started offering, we'd had these little events. I hired like Santa to come in during the Christmas season, and we take pictures with Santa. And I hired the science magician to come in, and he would do these scientific magic tricks in the afternoon. So when patients came in, there was something going on other than their teeth getting worked on. It was all of this buzz that we created. That then what happened was those patients, guess what they did? They referred other patients in.
Yeah, no, they want to share that experience. I want to go. I mean, this sounds like
Right?
a lot of fun.
Exactly. We brought fun back into the office, and it made a huge difference without a lot of outflow of money. Really, a lot of the stuff I'm telling you it's really pretty low budget types of things, but packed a powerful punch as far as getting new patients in the door and
Yeah,
referrals.
that's great. Donna, let's go to number 5. And I know because I met you at a mastermind group that this is, and it's not, I don't know how many orthodontics there are in that group. So, it's a rare, and I'm a financial guy, it's rare too. But you're emphasizing learning and education and telling your fellow entrepreneurs, how do you use that effectively? How would you encourage them to use that?
So, learning it, I mean, to me, you have to spend I spend at least an hour a day, 30 minutes for sure, on a tight day, learning something, whether it's my favorite things to do, honestly, are listen to podcasts because I'm commuting to my offices. There's 4 of them. So I'm driving somewhere, listening to a podcast. And for the most, that's huge. If I am not listening to a podcast, you can bet I'm reading. I probably am reading anywhere between 3 and 4 books a month, and all of that is just so important because just because you get out of dental school or orthodontic school or financial services school, or you got your MBA or whatever, there's always something to learn. And I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many times I learned like one thing on a podcast that created a $50,000 a day for me the next time I was in the office, or maybe one thing I learned about even related to your personal arena, like raising your kids, things about how to be a better parent. It's so important, and the people I meet that are constantly in this what I would call growth model, constantly learning, constantly innovating, constantly hungry for information, are the ones that will be able to make it through no matter what the economy brings, no matter what happens in their world, because they always know there's a solution out there. They just got to go find it. There's no shortage of information.
No, they totally agree. And I mean, the cost of podcast or a book, I mean, they're
Yeah.
nominal at most, and the ideas are just amazing. Matter of fact, let me go to the next segment, which is the book of the day. And I'm going to put up on screen your book. Tell us a little bit about, it's all about millimeters.
So when after I got through this journey and I came out of it, I decided, I got to write down the story. And the way it actually happened, a patient kind of gave me the idea in a way for the title of the book. Because one day we're sitting, and for any of you in the dental field listening to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're sitting there with a patient and you're looking at her teeth and you're saying to her, well, it's off about a millimeter. I want you to wear those rubber bands just another 4 weeks. And so we can get that overjet corrected. We get that midline centered. It's off about a millimeter. And this particular patient looked at me. She said, Dr. Galante, she said, look, I love my smile. It looks great. She said, I'm happy. And I said to her, but I forget her name. I said, but my world is millimeters, and a millimeter to me, it's like a mile. And she just started laughing. She goes, boy, she said, that must be tough to have to measure everything you do in millimeters. And I thought about it, and I thought, is it a bad thing? Not really. Because the reality is, it's those small things, and in dentistry, it's so true. It's those small things that we do, those millimeter changes, whether they're good or bad, that can make or break a certain situation. It can make or break, the way your crown fits, maybe the way your root canal was finished, maybe your overbite is still off a millimeter. But in our daily lives, think about the small things that we do that make such a big impact. And I wrote the book kind of sharing my journey in the first half of the book, from a business perspective about doing the little things to make the big impact. And then the second part of the book, I talk about more from a personal standpoint, some of the things that we can do to build better relationships, to grow as leaders. And most of us, listening to this podcast, I'm sure that you are goal-oriented, you're out there trying to change the world. And the problem is most of us set goals that are huge. They're ginormous. And you look at your goals and you get overwhelmed. So one of the proposals in my book is that we'll take it a millimeter at a time. Start off with one little small step each and every day. And if you do that, you will be blown away how many of your goals you'll accomplish without the worry that, it's overwhelming or they're too big. Because I never want to encourage people to lower their goals. All I would do is encourage you to take it a millimeter at a time to get to those big goals. And then that's how you'll succeed.
No, I love the story and love the book. And it's really, those small changes can have a huge impact. But let's go to something else small. The smartphone, and the next segment is the application of the day. Donna, what would be the app on your smartphone that you would like to share with your fellow entrepreneurs?
Well, I've recently started working with Fancy Hands. And there's definitely a company to look at. I absolutely love them. It's basically like a virtual assistant for you. So, for example, you can type in, like recently there's been a lot of birthdays in my family, nieces, nephews, and I just type in, I need a gift sent to my nephew in Florida. Here's his size and here's his address. And, I'm telling you, within 5 minutes, I get an email back with a couple different choices, and I pick what I want, and off the gift goes. And I have just found it to be a great resource for us busy entrepreneurs, and very simple to use, very effective, and you can put it on your phone. You can, any time of the day you want to go out to dinner, and you don't have time, you don't want to make the dinner reservations, you ask them to do it for you. They can write, they can do they do some pretty amazing things for me. Right now we're trying to plan a Christmas party for my employees, and they're doing the research on different venues for me. And, you got a lot on your plate, and some of these things, you definitely should turf to. Fancy Hands or some sort of virtual assistant, but Fancy Hands has been my go-to in the past several months.
And it has mine for a couple of years, Donna, and I think it's like $45 a month for 15 or 16, and so inexpensive and just amazing. But let's go to the next one, which is resources. And let me pull up your website and tell me a little bit about what the viewers and listeners would find at drdonnagalante.com.
So what you'll find there is it's very much geared for the dental community. I have a blog I write, although I have to say the blog, if when you read it, I'm not talking about necessarily teeth per se. It's more general topics. So that might be something that you might be interested in subscribing to. There's a free report, that you can sign up for. I offer some Invisalign coaching to dentists and orthodontists, so that's more of a clinical coaching service. And you'll find on there, you can purchase my book. You can also see some other vendors that I work with. I have a sample download of some marketing materials that I offer complimentary for those of you that visit my website. So there's some really nice resources there, and I think you'll find some great things, whether you're a dentist or a financial planner, or you're a baker or a personal chef. You'll find some good things there on that site.
No, there's some great insights. And let me go and share kind of my key takeaways with our viewers and listeners. And, as an entrepreneur, I love Donna's Big Five, and I'm going to start with them again. One, recognize the problem. And I always think of it as, don't wait until the heart attack. And I've never had a heart attack, don't want to have that, but I've had business heart attacks along the way. And they look back, as Donna said, some of the best things come out of it. But let's do it ahead of time. Once a year, do your annual plan and have, pretend that you have the heart attack. Do the zero-based, projection. So everything has to be justified. Number two, make changes right from the beginning of your process. Examine that whole process you're doing, and where can you deliver more value, and where are you not delivering value? Work smarter, not harder. I'll tell you, this is one that so many of us as entrepreneurs, we're go-getters. We have no problem working really hard. And unfortunately, so often, because we're working so hard, we're working on the business. Michael Gerber, we're not working in the business. And Michael was one of the key guys, a great book, E-Myth. If you haven't read that, you should, no matter what business you are. And getting focused on those important key drivers of your business. Focus on the client service, the experience. Donna, not all of us, I have a virtual business, Donna. I can't cook cookies. I can, but then I probably put on another 100 pounds. But, there's so many different things that we can do, and it's huge. I just go on the little things that we do too. But look in your business. Where are those little touches that don't cost anything, like the card that Donna talked about? And then emphasize learning and education. It's one of the reasons I do a podcast. Is love podcasts. I get to share it with my friends here, and as well as books. And I'm in 3 masterminds. I spend over $100,000 a year on really just learning. And I do have a couple master's degree, all the other stuff. And Donna, you've got all that advanced education. That's just the start. We're on this long journey. We're going to have a great life. Donna, I want to thank you again for your inspiration, your sharing your message. You're a remarkable individual. And I'm going to encourage everyone to go to aesnation.com you can download the transcription, all the show notes, everything Donna and I talked about will be there. And above all, go execute these Big Five. Your current clients, your future clients, and all those future strategic partners, they're counting on you. Don't let them down. Wish you the best of success.
Exceptional, remarkable breakthroughs. aesnation.com